Hello and welcome to Hypothetically Speaking, the show where we talk about anything unexplained, unsolved, and unnatural. I'm Bree.
I'm Morgan.
And I'm Allison.
Tonight we are going to talk about a very curious case of possible reincarnation. So, this is probably one of the most famous modern cases of like people thinking that somebody was reincarnated, partially just because of how odd it is. And obviously there's a lot of like nuance to the actual like spiritual belief of reincarnation. So this is specifically covering like people's souls inhabiting like another body after they die. So not so much into the like karma and like you know how
Yeah,
it can be sort of it's a depending on how
we're not going into
virtuous
that.
you were,
Yeah.
that sort
There's
of
less
thing.
of the outside religious context and more of like this person has been reborn as another human being who can like tell us things about their past kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Also, probably not like that one Taylor Swift thing where they claim that she's a reincarnation of someone who is actively still alive. That one kills me. They're like, she looks just like her. And I'm like, there's a difference between a doppelganger and saying that someone's a reincarnation of a still living person.
It's actually, I don't think that's how reincarnation has ever worked in any spiritual setting at all,
No.
No, correct. So this is more of a genuine reincarnation case.
Yeah. So no like nothing to be said like on really the religious aspect of it. We're just talking about specifically the belief within the sphere of this case that like a person's soul and consciousness could theoretically become someone else's after their passing. Um so yeah. At the top I had trigger warning for like death of children or like that involving like vehicles, brief mention of like suicide and overdose, things like that. Um, but these are brief mentions. It is like the crux of this, like the original catalyst for this story, but it is touched on briefly at the beginning if you'd like to skip past. Otherwise, this just might not be the best episode for you if that's something that is going to bother you. So, just your fair warning at the start. But as we get into it, the Pollocks were a normal family from Hexham, England, until an unimaginable tragedy befell their family. The father, John, believed strongly in reincarnation despite his Catholic faith. He even went so far as to pray for a sign to prove him right. A real-life monkey's paw wish, it would seem. Is this a case of the influence of grief on a family or a story of reincarnation? Let's weigh the evidence and see. Um, this definitely falls into the unexplained, but some parts of this are a little eerie to the point where I would say it goes almost a little preternatural, unnatural. I don't know. It's such an interesting
Yeah.
case. Um, yeah, to get started on the family, John Pollock was born in Bristol in 1920. He was a member of the Church of England until he converted to Catholicism. Florence Pollock was a member of the Salvation Army and became Catholic upon marrying John. As mentioned, despite his faith, he believed really strongly in reincarnation, which he first found out about in a novel he read when he was young.
That's a fascinating mix of ideology.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not Catholic, so I don't know all of their faith stuff, but I don't think they lean reincarnation.
no, it is like about as at odds with the Catholic faith as you can get.
Uh, they're really about
like
that you die
what
and
a
you go to heaven or hell type thing. They're very fire
Heaven,
and
hell,
brimstone from what
purgatory.
I've seen.
yeah, what a
Yeah.
like that feels like it should be like an award like superlative, but on a mug is the most at odds you could be with the Catholic faith. Could not be any more at odds with.
I have at least in D&D, I've toed that line. Oh boy, but like not in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
My grandma does believe I do that. Um, not
yeah,
Catholic, but the Christian faith by playing D&D. We
Oh,
love her though.
yeah.
yeah. My mom makes me laugh every time. Love you, mom, if you're listening. Every time she's like, "But you know it's a game, right?" And I'm like, "Yes, I know I'm not an elf."
I've grasped that. I'm not gonna live for 400 years, Mom. I get it.
To only sleep for 4 hours a night, though, to only require 4 hours of meditation a night, would love that. That would be my
I would
favorite
read
thing.
so many books. I already read so many books, but I would read so
Oh
many
my
more.
gosh. I would probably just do a lot more crafting.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
free time to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
stuff. That would
Yeah.
be great. But anyways, John had even admitted at one point that he would pray to God for evidence of reincarnation to prove him right. And as I said, this obviously was not something he would have ever like wanted. But it
Yeah.
sort of has the essence of a monkey's paw of like you wish for something and you get the most atrocious version of that wish.
Not
Uh
the also like not the like, dear God, please prove me right. Like of all the things to pray about,
Honestly, I'd say
to
that's
be
some bad
right.
behavior right there.
it it's
Oh.
very it's very me sort of him.
Yeah.
Um he they did end up they weren't like super associated. They left the church in the 1960s.
Okay.
John strongly believed in this reincarnation while his wife Florence did not. Um so the children of the
I
family,
have to prove my wife wrong.
I have to prove my
And I'm
wife
sure she was
wrong.
like, yeah, okay, sweetie. Anyways,
Yeah,
we're Catholic. Stop it.
I'm a part of this faith because you were the one who converted, and now you are making it difficult. Um, so the siblings, the children of the family, there were three brothers, I think. But at the time of the eldest daughter, Joanna's birth, there was two older brothers. She was their third child and first daughter, born in 1946. In 1951, when they moved to Hexham in Northumberland, the second daughter, Jacqueline, was born. Uh, the daughters were largely raised by their maternal grandmother because their dad and was doing this grocery business and their mom helped him out with milk delivery. Like the old milkman with, in the bottles, milk delivery.
Okay.
Um, the girls were inseparable. Joanna liked to mother Jacqueline. Joanna also liked to wear costumes, she liked to be in plays, act, like in these plays she made up. She was very a bit extroverted, she was generous, she shared well. Um, both of the girls really enjoyed like combing people's hair, like brushing their hair, especially their dads. Um, and Joanna had this premonition when she was little. That's what they say in the article is premonition. She had this thing she would say growing up that she would never be a lady. Which I don't know. It's hard because it's one article. The interpretation they
Yeah.
have is that it would be that she would never grow up. And I assume that's based on other things she said. And it's not just
Mhm.
like, I will never be a lady in the like, I will sit cross-legged in my skirt and you cannot stop me.
I'm gonna do what I want.
Yeah.
Kind of
I
vibe.
I assume that this is written because this is based off of some of the psychological
Yeah.
studies that were done on the twins. I
Might have a bit
assume,
more context.
yeah, that's the context that they're going with. Other like notable events in the girls' lives. Jacqueline at the age of 3 fell into a bucket and that caused a small gash on her forehead above her eye, near the top of her nose. This made a scar that was more visible in the winter cold. She also had a round birthmark on the left side of her waist. This is the younger of the two sisters. Then this is where we get into the tragic thing that happened. So your fair warning again. On May 7th of 1957, Joanna was 11 and Jacqueline was 6. They, as well as another child, their friend, were walking to church and they were struck by a car and all killed. The two girls died immediately and the boy died on the way to the hospital. The driver was not in a good place. She had taken what she believed to be a lethal dose of medication. She was also grieving and not well mentally, and so this was an attempt at suicide. She decided to get behind the wheel inebriated. I do not believe that her intention was to strike them down, but she had been driving with the intent of ending her own life. And the children were on a bridge next to a wall where they could not get out of the way, is what happened. So this was a very terrible tragedy, obviously, for the family and for everybody involved. Their parents were devastated. Florence generally tried to put it out of her mind the best she could, while John was very fixated on the girls and devoted to like keeping them in his thoughts. He had this vision on the day of their death of like them in heaven, and he had seen them in like the top room of their house. And so he liked to sit there to like feel like he was close to them, basically. Um, he felt that this was a punishment from God for asking for what he had asked. Um, but he also believed that his daughters would be reborn into the family. Like this was his punishment and also his answer that reincarnation was real.
I mean, I think, and that's kind of a mixed bag of there's a certain amount of I asked for this, I'm getting what I asked for. I also think there's a level of for any parent losing a young child, you want to find some sort of rhyme or reason to what happened. And even if he shoulders some of the responsibility in that way, I think there is a bit of peace that comes from giving it a reason rather than just like this random tragic accident. I think is sometimes harder for people to cope with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's like a really it's I can't really blame someone in general for like their how they choose to uh, compartmentalize. I don't know if that's the right word,
Yeah.
but how they choose to like hold space for what happened in their
Yeah.
mind. I think that like there are ways that are healthier and less healthy, but I also think in the like grief cycle that that's just
Grief is hard. There's
yeah,
not a correct way to grieve.
exactly. So this did cause some strife between the couple. Florence really didn't like this like explanation. She tolerated it, but she really did not like it, and it threatened their marriage to the point where she at one point was threatening to divorce him. Um, However, they did stay together and about I'm not entirely sure on when, but she ended up becoming pregnant again. Um, and John was convinced that this was going to be like their daughters, reincarnated as twins. Uh, Florence did not believe this and again did not really like to talk about it. The doctor predicted a single birth based on scans, fetal heartbeat, everything like that. Like her checkups all made it seem like there would be one baby by everything that they looked at.
So
What
I presume she was like, quit saying that they'll be twins. It's not. The doctor said no.
Yeah,
what years was this?
this was the death of the children happened in 1957 and then tw
Okay.
the twins were born in 1958.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for like error in
Yeah.
medical
Yes.
pregnancy
Yeah.
predictions at this time, so that makes
I
Um
sense too.
yeah. I also can see where this I can see where this specifically would be a sticking point, but like in general, after loss of a child, it is pretty common to see people get divorced or have like really tumultuous
Very true.
relationships. But I could see where as a parent that's like, I am just grieving my children that I lost, quit telling me that they're coming back in this different form. Like that's not helpful to my grieving
Yeah.
process. I could see where that would be a really big conflict if you disagree on that.
yeah,
Did they have any other children?
they did. They had
Okay.
um I don't know when the third brother was born, but they had three sons. And
Oh
then
wow.
the
It's a
two
lot.
daughters who passed away and then
Very
their
classic Catholic family.
yes.
It's
And
a lot of
then
childbirth in the 50s. That
yeah.
sounds so scary to me.
Um and then the twins to my understanding were the last children they had. Um which yep, it's I fear that would be me too. That would be it. Nope,
Yeah,
no more.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh
It's a lot.
yeah. So
5 kids plus two more is 7.
And
that's
like, I get it. There are people that that's what they want, but for
oh
me,
yeah.
for my body, that sounds exhausting
Oh my
and
gosh.
to be a real struggle. Just based on how difficult my mom found childbirth, I cannot imagine that would go well for me.
Yeah. And like it's very person dependent, but like you gotta listen to like what you
Yeah,
yourself need.
yeah.
Um 100%.
Also, in this economy,
In this
no.
economy
Absolutely not.
could not be so presumptuous. Um the oh, what was I gonna say? So the everything made it seem like they were gonna have one kid. Like the heartbeat, they could only hear one heartbeat, all of that. There is no familial history on either side of the family of twins at all. But despite all of this, on October 4th of 1958, Florence gave birth to twins named Jillian and Jennifer. Um, and this is where we get into so these are obviously the twins of mention. There are significant physical and like memory-based reasons why the twins are thought to be reincarnations of their older sisters. Um, so we're gonna start with the physical characteristics, and then we'll get into like some of the stuff that they said. And this all occurred between the ages of like when they could talk to around 5 is when they were like interviewed when most of these happened. And according to Ian Stevenson, who was the person who largely was documenting them in like this, he has an entire study and books upon like reincarnation. I believe I don't know if he was like just got his degrees there or if he worked. I think it was University of Virginia, but let me double check that. Um, I know I had it somewhere just to give him his flowers quick.
Yeah. Good to have some background on the person that did the research that you're kind of talking about.
Oh, I'll just look him up directly.
I want to know, like, do you study theology to get into reincarnation? Like, where do you think you start in your degrees to go down this research path?
Um,
I feel like you have to study some like paranormal stuff too,
he was
to
the
some degree.
founder
Yeah.
and director of the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. He was a professor at the University of Virginia School of Medicine for 50 years and chair of the Department
Ooh,
of Psychiatry from 1957 to 1967.
I could see
Um,
where psychologists would get into this. That actually makes a lot of sense.
yes.
especially a
Um,
psychologist in the 50s.
Yeah, psychology is a new field. It is changed dramatically from then to now. It is
mhm.
wild to see how much more we know about how the brain works, and we still know
Early,
very little.
I mean, honestly, even still, there's some pretty
Brains are hard.
pretty interesting
Brains are hard.
interesting ideas within psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Um,
even like the more concrete like neuroscience stuff. Like if people get brain damage, we we have some
we don't
ideas of
know.
what will happen, but we don't actually, it's hard to make predictions on how stuff will go.
Yeah. Learning's a big thing too. Like in
Yeah.
theory, we understand how people learn, but like especially language learning and
Yeah.
reading, we have concepts, we have ideas, we have theories of how it works. Um, However, we do not have like a single um
We don't know
idea.
for sure.
I cannot remember what the theories are called off the top of my head. Hi, masters in reading here. But there's one where like all the like little like basically brain uh
Synapses?
synapse like well yeah, synapses, but like it's like the idea of how the brain like finds a word in its
Okay.
catalog of words is
Yeah.
like they're called like word demons or something like that. Like
They're just rooting
legitimately.
around finding them.
Whoa,
Yeah, and it's like little fiends in your mind finding the right word, and
dude, my
I
little fiends in
See,
my mind need to work harder, low
yeah.
key.
there are some days that I'm like, seriously?
If
Now
they
you
can
can blame
be,
the fiends.
they gotta be going to
I
the
love
gym
this
more
for
or
me.
something. I don't know. They're not. They fall behind
Yeah,
sometimes.
I'll
I
have to
have a
find what that
feeling
theory
I
is
will
again.
start telling this to people every time they can't recall a word.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
your little word fiends can't find the word
Yeah.
you're looking for.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Um, I could probably figure out what it is.
They all
Oh, I'm only getting can Satan read our minds? No, we're not doing that right now.
do.
Anyways,
That's next time
next
on
time,
Hexham.
tangent aside, oh, Stevenson did believe in reincarnation, but not like wholeheartedly either. He took it as like a cautious thing, and he gathered a lot of evidence. He has like 2,002 books, which are each like 1,000 pages on just like birthmarks and birth defects in terms of like possible reincarnation, as well as like one on his actual like case studies of specific people who are believed to be reincarnated, including the Pollock twins. And basically all he wanted was for it to be like, this is something to be considered. Like
Yeah.
he's like, this is my body of evidence that this is something that could possibly be true. So he's not like a full on like conspiracy theorist about
Yeah.
it, which I think also lends him a little bit more credence.
Yeah.
Uh,
It feels less like there's going to be excessive confirmation bias when they're like, I just want to consider it. I'm not saying it's true.
yeah. Um, yes, so he seems like in terms of like someone who has is saying that reincarnation could happen is a fairly reliable source. And he has a very large body of work on the subject. So they were like cataloged, interviewed, all of that from about the ages of like 1 to 5 is when most of this happened. So there were some physical signs that were taken into account. Joanna was the like a bit slender and of build, and so was Jillian. Jennifer was somewhat stocky, which matched Jacqueline. Jillian and Jennifer being the twins, and then Joanna and Jacqueline being the uh older sisters.
I
Joanna
wonder
also
if all the brothers have J names too.
I do too, but they're not mentioned like anywhere.
It
Um,
just sounds confusing as
I
a
w
family to keep all that straight in your head.
yeah, I wonder if it was because I don't know anything about the brothers. I wonder if
Yeah,
it was meant in a way to honor the sisters,
yeah.
or I'm not sure, but um, Joanna had a more sort of they specifically say splay-footed gait than Jacqueline, and this difference also showed up between Jillian and Jennifer. Um, One of the weirdest things is that at birth, Jennifer had a dark brown, roundish birthmark on her left side of her waist, which is at the same spot that Jacqueline had one. Um, and there's specific things about like the birthmarks too. Like it's more significant in um Stevenson's studies when uh it's like either depressed or raised. Like it's a little bit more of like a a significant mark
Yeah.
has some significance. Again, 1,000-page book. I read kind of the intro to get an idea. I don't know a lot about
Yeah.
the depth of his research. But it was like that when she was born. She also had a um mark on her forehead, like another birthmark on her forehead. Similar to Jacqueline's, these would show up more significantly when when she was in cold weather. And other than Jacqueline, nobody else in the family had similar birthmarks.
Hmm, interesting.
Um, the and the weirdest thing about this is that um so there's also no genetic reason for this to really be different between the twins because by later testing they were monozygotic, which means that they're identical twins. Um,
Yeah,
as
that's interesting.
usually identical twins are the ones that are hereditary. They run in families because it is one egg that splits, or one zygote that splits into two different em fetuses. Sorry, I was
Yeah.
thinking the word. While fraternal twins are two separate eggs that were released at the same time and both ended up being fertilized. So those can be a little bit more variable just on like the cycle of the mother, whereas
Yeah.
identical twins are very hereditary. Um, Again, they had no history of twins in their family, which is not impossible. Again, I think I did watch the Mystery Files episode on this, and something Ryan said I think rang very true of it's not impossible, just very, very implausible.
The stats on that have to be wild for that to
Yes.
work out that way.
Um,
Hmm.
Another thought which I dislike generally, was that it, like in theory, it could have been some kind of maternal impression, which is a debunked, by the way. Uh, just putting that out there to start. Idea that like when someone is pregnant, their emotions are like can impact their unborn child, especially when it's like strong emotions of fear, and was thought to
Mm.
cause like birthmarks and birth defects, which has a very icky history of just blaming women for birth defects when it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with anything that they did.
Like, yeah,
Sometimes it's
like,
environmental factors.
yeah, I would say
Exactly.
some like
Looking
traumatic
at
environments can
you,
cause that. And like,
radium.
to be fair, that can make it look
Radium.
like it's stress. Just because if you are stressed, you might be in a bad environment, but like, it's probably the stuff around you, like maybe not having enough access to food that's the problem, not
Yeah.
that you're stressed about that.
And there's can be a whole bunch of different like it's a very it it's a very vulnerable
DNA
time. A lot of things can
is,
happen and
yeah,
DNA is funky.
DNA is
Pregnancies
weird.
are
Sometimes,
so messed up anyways, and like we don't even
yeah,
know, like doctors don't even know that much
the
about pregnancies.
the
Like,
research done on any women's health condition that it purely affects women is so bad. It's so bad.
so true.
It
So it's hard to say, but like seriously, it's improbable that there's a true cause and effect link there outside of like outside conditions would probably be
yeah.
impacting them.
'Cause like familial like there's like the whole, you know, babies born during a famine,
Yeah.
builds and stuff. Like there's
Yeah.
generational things
Yeah.
for sure. But that's more of like these
Probably like
people survived well because of these
culture.
factors and culture
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, like a lot of that's just like people who were alive during the greatest generation hoard everything because
They struggled
like
to
that's
get
what you
things.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
what you did.
they had war rationing and then they didn't and you keep everything. You
If
keep
you
keep
lived in
everything
the Great
usual,
Depression,
useful.
you feel like you should keep anything that you could maybe use someday, because what if you need it?
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess I was thinking more of the is it greatest after the silent or before? I can never remember.
I think it's
It all
before.
blends in my brain.
Yeah. Anywho, there's generational traits and things like
Yeah.
that. Um, so these were like the physical traits that lined up. Again, so like it was like very briefly brought up the idea of maternal impression, but even if that was a backed scientific thing, which it isn't, Florence did not believe in the reincarnation, so how would that affect them? Um, the Stevenson did speculate about like John's ideals and if that had anything like if he made an impression on them at all.
He as the
Um,
father could just wish so hard that it happened.
yeah, but he thinks that that would be uh it couldn't happen that like
Yeah.
they would so heavily influence them to behave like their sisters did.
Yeah. Well, like if he's like, "Oh, I think you're maybe the reincarnated like my of your older sisters, the reincarnation of your older sisters. Like, what if you like I don't know, wore their dresses or like played with their toys or something, something like that." I
Yeah.
could just be like, "Man, the like just like small comments like that because like children like really internalize stuff like that."
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so hard to say because, like, in your head, you're like, someone would do that. And then the more time I spend alive, I'm like, there's probably someone that would do that.
Yeah. The claims of the family are that, especially from John, is that he didn't even introduce them to the idea till they were 13. But children can overhear a lot of things that they aren't meant to hear. They're quite
Yeah.
sneaky. So it's possible. It also could just be a reflection of like the family's grief, of like the ways in which they like I don't know. Again, it it is a
Yeah.
very nuanced case.
I also think it
Mm.
falls for me a little bit under the umbrella of I think eyewitness testimony is trash. Like, as a universal statement, eyewitness testimony is so bad. Any studies they've done on people remembering things, like, it's never been good. And I
Yeah,
would say a
people don't
parent
remember
is
things.
more likely to know like the personality of their child. I'm not saying that they wouldn't remember that, but I think there also can be a level of seeing what you want to see and a certain level of like you're not always going to have the absolute clearest memories possible too. And so things that are kind of similar can sort of start to blend, I would say. So that
Hmm.
Or
makes
it
it
can
really hard to know
seem
for sure.
or it can seem like more similar than they like actually were
Yeah,
too.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I think there can be a little bit of, especially grieving and losing a child and stuff. I could see where you would like kind of want to see some of those things. And so, I mean, that's not inherently necessarily the case. It just, from everything I know about eyewitness testimony, it's a real struggle to like take that as full word.
Hmm. It, yeah. And like some of these are like accounts from the parents, and some of them are like what was recorded by the doctor. Um, so this is some of their behaviors that brought up questions. So according to their father, um, the twins spoke about the accident between themselves in the present tense, which struck him as odd, sort of like a reliving. They also displayed a lot of behaviors similar to their um, sisters. They were very, very close, just like the older sisters. Jillian liked to mother Jennifer, which Jennifer accepted, even though they were the same age. They took on those sort of roles of the sisters. The twins also looked to their maternal grandmother a lot for affection, even though their mother had stopped working before their birth. So she was fully like available to them, but the older sisters had mostly had their maternal grandmother as like a mother figure in their life when their mother was working. Um, they also really liked to comb people's hair, including their fathers, which was like their older sisters. Jillian was very social and generous, while like she was a bit more mature as well, um, than her twin, again, despite them being the same age. Uh, so she had a lot of similar traits. They also had, at least for a while, a bit of a phobia of cars. They apparently had a recurring nightmares when they were young of like getting hit by a car, as well as a specific instance where a car engine started in like an alleyway near them, and um their father observed the girls like flinching away, clinging to each other, and crying that the car was coming for them. Um, they they were very, very cautious in crossing streets and always held their mother's hand, which Florence thought possibly could just be because of her own caution around it, that they just mirrored her. Um, but those were another thing. Um, and then one that was very unrelated to the death of their sisters, but just a sort of a reflection of their behavior was at the time of their deaths, Jacqueline had still been learning to write, and her teacher was very concerned with her grip because she was like full fist gripping it still, which is not how you want to write. Um, and they apparently, again, it's the 50s. The teacher said
Yeah.
that they should correct it by slapping her hand, which don't do that.
Yeah.
Just PSA, don't do that.
I
I,
mean, I
I
do
know we
know
moved
someone,
past it, but
yeah. I do have a friend who, like, when she writes, holds it really similar to that. She'll, like, go like this and then her thumb tucks in and, like, she writes that way and she has forever. And her handwriting is, like, seriously the neatest I think I've ever seen. So, like, I know
yeah.
it's probably not advisable because it's easier to, like, smear your writing and it's probably more likely to, like, cramp your hand and stuff. But, like,
it's
You can do it.
totally it's
It's
totally
fine. It's
possible
functional.
for children. It's something we look for because it can be something where they might benefit from
Yeah.
at this stage where we have a
Yeah.
lot more understanding of it,
Moldability.
occupational
Yeah.
therapy, or just looking at their motor skills as
Yeah.
we're looking at their development milestones and sort of seeing if this is something of possible concern for the future, something,
Hmm.
Yeah.
um, all the things that go into it. But
Fine motor skills and stuff are pretty
yes,
important when you're young because that's the time that you're developing most of them.
yeah, which is
Hmm.
why they push for like the way you're supposed to hold a
I mean,
pencil.
I hold it wrong too. I hold it a different way wrong, but I hold it wrong.
I
I
also hold it
I
wrong. I
hold it
hold it like
wrong.
how Morgan does.
Yeah. Yep. It makes my writing so stable. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't stand
Yeah,
just having it float. I
I
can't do
I
can't
it.
don't
I can't
I
hold it
don't
like
think
this.
that
I hold it like this.
Yeah.
uh I don't think that like it was I don't think it's as much of a thing either though
Yeah.
because like in I mean in
Handwriting
this
was a much bigger deal in the past. I mean, calligraphy
yeah.
was more of a thing, cursive was more of a thing. There was a
Yeah.
lot more like you cannot be left-handed, like that's just not
Yes.
allowed.
Yeah, which
Yeah,
is
like
wild.
my grandpa was like forced to learn to write with his right
Yeah.
hand even though he's left-handed.
I will say I've found it to be a struggle that I'm right-handed, left foot dominant, and left eye dominant. It makes doing
It's
coordinated
weird.
activities a wee bit more of a struggle, I will say.
It's wild how still left-handed people are just like don't get things like scissors.
See, and a part of me wonders because, like, if I'm doing gymnastics, I start with the left side of my body
I'm a
always.
lefty for
If,
gymnastics.
like, there's so many other things that I do with the left side of my body, I'm like, did I just decide to be right-handed or, like, what happened there? How did this occur?
As a kid,
I
I
think
wanted to
there's
be ambidextrous so bad. I am not. I'm decidedly terrible at writing with my left hand.
yeah.
Me too.
I actually think I did practice with my left hand and I actually did get like okay, but I don't
Yeah,
know. I think like I don't, there's so much room for like oh, we have these boxes that we have for ourselves that are like not actually real when
yeah,
it comes to things like that too.
Yeah, definitely.
So, uh, whatever.
Um, yes, the she had the pencil
yeah,
firmly grasped it in her hand. Um, so when Jillian and Jennifer started to begin writing, Jillian immediately was doing it the proper way, while Jennifer was holding it in her fist. She only started to write like in a more standard way when she was 7. And even as a young adult, sometimes she would use this for like, I don't know. Sometimes you revert
yeah,
to bad habit because it's just easy, quick.
yeah,
Um, so those were some of the behaviors that they exhibited that were similar to their sisters, and then we get into the statements that they made, which is probably the stuff that is the most like talked about. Um, all of it's wild, but like, and again, like these, we're taking these at face value. They're reports from like their parents. And John obviously had like a thing about this. I think
yeah,
I take a little bit more credence in them because of how not into it Florence was. So I feel
yeah.
like if it was just they were both
It,
into it,
yeah,
it totally wouldn't make sense. But it's the fact that she's like, yeah, they did say that.
yeah.
It gives it a
She's
little
like, I
bit more
still don't
backing.
believe you, but like, I guess that's true.
Yeah. Um, they made some statements that like involved like relating to their older sisters, you mostly between the age of 3 and 7. Um, when the twins were 3, their parents brought down a box of toys which had originally belonged to their sisters and been stored in the attic. There was no like fighting or anything between them. They just neatly divvied up the toys. Jillian picked a doll that had belonged to Joanna. Jennifer picked one that belonged to Jacqueline. They both said that these were gifts from Santa, which they were for their sisters. Which I don't think is the most far-fetched thing for a child to just say,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
Um,
Is this from Santa? Sure.
yeah, they didn't have any like fights about the toys. They just divvied them up and were like, "These are mine, these are mine." And so, and these were like without any prior like seeing of them or like
Yeah.
choosing them or anything like that. This one gets a little bit darker, just for a fair warning. Um, it's like something that they said that has relation to the car accident again, if that upsets anybody. Florence occasionally would overhear them discussing what sounded like the details of the accident, even though they didn't know about the accident yet. One time they came across Jillian holding Jennifer's head, um, and saying like that was where the car hit you. And John recalled that when he had identified the bodies, the top of Jacqueline's head had been bandaged above her eyes. Um, and at one point, Jillian pointed out the birthmark that Jennifer had on her forehead and said that Jennifer got it when she hit her head on a bucket, which was not true of Jennifer, but was true of Jacqueline. Um, Florence had, sorry, I'm kind of running through these rapid
Yeah.
fire, but
Oh, it's all good.
Florence had a smock that she had worn during like her milk delivery business. Um, when the twins were about four or so, John had worn it to paint something, and one of the daughters asked why he was wearing, they're British, so mummy's coat. Uh,
Why are you wearing mummy's
Spectacular.
coat?
mummy's coat.
Fascinating.
I saw mummy and
Yeah.
it threw me.
Mummy's milk delivery coat.
Uh, she became annoyed with Jillian for not recognizing it, which, if we take on that they would be the siblings, Jillian as the older, quote unquote, of the two, um, being like Joanna would have been at school and not seeing their mother as much as Jacqueline or Jennifer would have. Um, And when John asked how they knew it was their mother's, because she hadn't ever worn it around them, they said it was from when she delivered milk. So just a
And
weird thing that
yeah.
they noticed, which I guess they could have
Yeah.
taken from context, but
Yeah.
like,
And like some of these things get weird because like we sometimes don't give children enough credit for how much they figure out. But also these people had 7 children. So like you would think that maybe by now they would like kind of know on some level what to expect from them, like figuring
hmm
things out on their own too.
yeah, it that one is weird to me just because if it's like hanging up in a closet and it or like a laundry area or something and it literally never gets worn,
Yeah.
why would it even get brought up? You know, it's not
Yeah.
like you don't bring up the broom
Hmm.
hanging there.
Yeah.
So I don't even know why like their siblings would mention it or they would mention it other than like it's just that one's really weird to me.
Very.
Yeah.
Um the Pollocks had moved away from Hexham where they had lived when the twins were about 9 months old, but when they were about four, the family did go and visit again for the first time. When they were walking towards a park but had not yet seen it, Jillian and Jennifer said they wanted to go across the road to the park, to the swings, and very clearly showed that they knew the way to go, even though they had never been there. They hadn't been
That's
to Hexham
odd.
since they were 9 months old.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
Yeah. Another thing from when they were, I guess th this one I'm not quite sure, but I think it just means that they're like were before school age. It said when the girls complained about a lunch they were having at home, their mother said they could have lunch at school, and they answered, "We've done that before," which was not true of the younger daughters, but was true of the older daughters. So I don't 100% understand that one,
Yeah.
but um These
I
were all
just,
recounted
yeah.
by John,
I
in like the
definitely
interviews.
find some of them weird. I will say some like the latter, though, having a niece and nephew that are quite young. It is not uncommon for them to just say stuff and
Oh
have me be
yeah,
like, what?
100%.
So, like, some of them I'm like, a child very much so could just say that. But there are a few that I'm like, that is definitely weird.
Yeah. My kids say the darndest things. My
Hmm.
students say so many things all the time, honestly.
Yeah,
Um,
Kids also say some really creepy stuff sometimes.
they do.
that is so real.
Um, the so I guess the kind of last notes are just a little on the investigation. So Stevenson uh investigated and like met them, had interviews and examined the girls um in 1963, came again 4 years later in 1967, and then spoke with them next in 1978 when they were 20, which is when they had the blood test and figured out that they were identical twins. Um, which I don't know if that was just newer technology at the time or if they just had
Yeah,
never thought to do it. Um,
yeah.
but
I
he
could see it being
also,
newer.
yeah, he also visited John and John's uh new wife after Florence had died a few years previously. Um, as well as visited Jillian later in the 80s, and then talked with John until his death in 1985. Um, he wrote a very detailed case report on all of this in his second volume of Reincarnation and Biology, a contribution to the etiology of birthmarks and birth defects, as well as summarize some other cases within that. Um, but yeah, the only other thing of like note is I guess they, as they grew older, they grew out of these like sort of weird past life memories, um, which is according to Stevenson very typical of children who are thought to be reincarnated. And again, according to John, they only learned about this idea of them possibly being reincarnated at the age of 13. They went on to live very normal lives. They did like understand in their 20s that their parents, or at the very least that John believed that they were the reincarnated versions of their older sisters, although they did have their own mild skepticism about the idea of reincarnation. The only other incident that took place after about the age of like, I think like between 5 and 7 is when they last were like really having anything like that, is Jillian experienced like an inner vision of something where she saw herself playing in a sandpit with one of her brothers. And when she described the place they were at, it was like a house, a garden, and orchards, which exactly matched the description of their family home in Wickham when Joanna had been younger than 4, but Jillian never went to Wickham. So
Uh,
uh, that is like the
yeah.
last thing that was sort of shared about it. Um, there is essentially, I think, two main camps. One that in some way they are the reincarnations of their sisters, and another that it was their father's influence or their family's influence. Um, There's one account of from I think like it was someone related to the family, but not one like a super direct relative of that was very critical of John's character and the thought that he could have been like a bad and overbearing and controlling husband and father,
Um,
although the sisters did not feel this way. They felt he had strong beliefs, but he was generally a good father. Um, so it's sort of that's oh my gosh. You scared me. I heard a knock, and it must have been a cat, but that was creepy. Out of the
No.
darkness. Hello, tequila.
Notably the name of a cat, not the
Yes.
liquor.
Just tequila comes calling.
Well, if I die, um,
The cats did it.
the cats did it. But yeah,
It does make sense.
Yeah.
that's kind
Yeah.
of it for this case. It's a very like it's a I just was left with a lot of like questions of what, why, how, and
I
all
do
of that.
find like the birthmarks and stuff being the same really weird. Like from a genetic standpoint, the probability of that is so small that that's
Yes.
pretty interesting that that
Yeah.
worked out that way. Outside of that, I struggle just because I see how much with things like gender, the way parents ask questions and frame things, and like having people come up to like a little girl and be like, "Oh, you're so pretty," versus a little boy and ask him stuff like, "What's your favorite subject in school?" Like, I see how much that tends to impact how kids develop when they're asked those like different kinds of questions or told those different things growing up. And so I could see there being more influence there than people necessarily want to anticipate.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but like parts of that is definitely weird of like how would they know that or guess that or that kind of thing.
hmm There's definitely like an element of like I personally don't think that like it was of like a malicious intent of like I need to
No,
have my daughters back, so
no,
you
yeah.
you are my
You
daughters,
get
but
to
you
be
are
them.
my previous
Congrats.
daughters.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
Yeah.
think that their presence obviously was held so close to them that I think probably in un like
inadvertent influence,
inadvertent
kind of.
ways they were influencing them, which again brings up the question of some of the things that they said were very eerily similar, as well as like the birthmarks, the fact that they are twins, identical twins with absolutely no like familial
Yeah,
history of it, which can happen.
yeah,
Like it had to happen the first time for it to happen. Like all genetic like trends start somewhere, but
yeah.
very odd and like improbable.
I also
Yeah.
just, I in general struggle a little bit with there is a certain question of like, how do you benefit? So, like, in theory, through this being like known and talked about, someone could maybe get some media attention. I guess there's some possibility of recognition, some possibility of maybe some financial gain, I guess. But it gets to be really far stretched of like, if you tell people this, convince people of this, go out of your way to do this, like, what do you really get out of that? Like, how much benefit is there truly other than a bunch of people being like, yeah, that guy's kind of crazy. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know that there's enough benefit there in my mind. I mean, it's hard to say what different people's mental state is, but to me, I struggle to see what you get out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
I
I think there's like some level of like I mean, I don't think that they did this like on purpose, and they may have thought they were being very like insulating the twins really well from their sort of, or John specifically, his preconceptions, but I still think that the possibility for like contamination, if you will, is
Yeah.
very, very
yeah.
high.
I also
And
There's a
will
reason
say,
why like double blind
yeah,
experiments exist. Like there's totally
yeah,
like
yeah,
bias on behalf of the people who are administering tests.
yeah. I also would say I have seen a lot of like research specifically on the impact of financial struggle on children and even amongst parents that like really think they hide it from their kids can tell their kids notice. And I mean, there
yeah,
are some more concrete signs of like financial struggle that they may see between their family and their peers' families, that might be a little bit easier for them to pick up on. But like, I would say just that research in and of itself shows a lot of perception of children maybe being picking up on more than what parents think they are. So even if it wasn't like an intentional thing, I think there's quite a bit of room for it's improbable that no one in their household talked about their sisters at all and they didn't hear some stories and they didn't pick up some things even if it wasn't being intentionally told to them.
Hmm. I think that's probably true.
Especially because the turnaround time from when the older sisters would have died to when the twins was born was pretty short, I think. Like it
Yeah,
sounded like it to
it
me.
was about a year.
Yeah, and so like that's still pretty fresh grief for losing two children of that age. Like that's not something that's just going to go away. And children have such a habit of repeating stuff. Like
Hmm.
if you've ever accidentally said something you didn't mean to around a kid and then they picked it up as a habit that you're like, "Oh, please quit saying that." Like they definitely pick up on little vocal stems and things from hearing things.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I don't really have any other closing thoughts besides what, oh my gosh, the exposure just got terrible. I look like I'm in Twilight. Uh, but it's because I went to from a dark screen to a light screen. Here, we'll maximize that. There we go. Now it looks better. But we, I don't have any other really final thoughts other than like question mark.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's reincarnation, but I think it's really, really weird.
Yeah, that's fair. Valid take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Yeah. I don't think it's reincarnation. I do think that it's family influence.
Yeah, I think that can definitely be a big factor.
I at least think it's part of it.
Yeah.
And like,
I also, yeah, I wonder what my own sort of like spiritual beliefs also maybe go into
yeah,
my like feelings because I like recognize that I do have that um
a
that might
different
like
background
bias
with
me
faith.
in some ways.
Yeah.
And I will
Yeah,
say, like, for me, from a scientific standpoint, we can't prove what happens when you die. I can't say outright 100% that reincarnation isn't real. I just,
true.
it does feel like for the number of cases we see, like a bit of a stretch. I mean, I know there's arguments for like most people maybe won't remember, or like maybe they're not connected to people that would have known their previous iteration in life or things like that. I get that there's some variance there that can make that maybe more of a struggle, but from a scientific perspective, I don't know. It's a thing
Yeah.
that would be really difficult to outright prove, but it that also means that it's hard to like fully prove that it's not possible either.
Hmm.
Yeah, true.
Any other
Well,
closing thoughts?
This was odd.
this is very,
It's
very
very
odd.
odd.
Uh, sad what happened to those two girls.
Yeah.
Hope they're
And their friend too.
yeah, and their friend. Also, oh yeah, oh my gosh, like it's kind of like too bad. Like the other person's like parent is just like, okay, so you like, what do you think
Yeah.
happened to my
Yeah.
kid then?
Yeah.
I
Like
don't even know
they
that they were
don't,
close. It was just the children that were friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to think like that would be a really weird situation if you ever actually hear about this of like, okay,
Yeah.
then what happened to my
Where's my
son?
yeah,
kid? Yeah.
low
Yeah,
key kind of awkward.
that is really awkward. I hope that I think most of the people involved directly are no longer alive, but I hope everyone
Yeah,
involved at this point is at peace with
yeah.
everything.
I hope the twins like lived rich and fulfilling lives,
Yes.
Yep.
and like didn't worry about this too much. 'Cause,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
it
Yeah.
sounds like they ended up pretty well adjusted and like they didn't
Pr-
really take too
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
about it and all that.
yeah,
That's
good
good.
for
I
them,
I would say that's probably for the best.
Yeah.
definitely.
All right. With that note, I feel like that's a good note to end it on.
Yeah.
Wishing well to everybody involved. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for Hypothetically Speaking, or morning, or whenever you're listening to this.
Yep.
Um, if you want to hear us talk about more things unexplained, unsolved, and unnatural, we are here sometimes, about once a month-ish. And we have a little bit of a backlog of about 10 or so episodes you could listen to or watch if you are interested. We're here on YouTube or Spotify, whichever you're listening to or watching. And yeah, not for any reason other than we just like it. We just like being here. But if you want to give anything
Yeah.
else a listen, please consider find another hyperfixation topic whilst we are gone. Um,
We love lifelong learning.
we
Yes.
do. We do.
Lear-
Such a good time.
Yep.
Um, but until next time, I've been Bree,
I've been Morgan.
And I've been Allison.
and we will see you next time. Don't put weird eh, subliminal ideas on your children about them being the reincarnation of your older children.
But do teach them a lot about safety around motor vehicles and caution when crossing the street
Yeah.
True.
and
And
like walking by streets. It doesn't sound
and
like they were crossing, but like
No,
yeah.
they
as a
were not,
general thing,
but
like
yeah,
careful around cars.
And
yes,
do teach them empathy because that's just always a good thing to teach your children too.
very true.
Yes.
V- Life lessons with hypothetically
Yes.
speaking.
The more you
We just
know.
can't help ourselves.
We can't. All our good things. Don't own an axe. Stay
Yeah.
safe. Be good people. We'll see you next week or whenever.